The South Australian election has been explosive, with One Nation outpolling the Liberal Party and confirming that their rise in the polls is very real. This will be terrifying for the other parties, given One Nation's position in the Victorian polls, with the Victorian election now just 8 months away, and given One Nation's position in the federal polls, with the most recent poll of over 8,000 participants predicting that if a federal election were held today, One Nation would get something like 50 lower house seats, with the Liberals being reduced to something like a dozen. And yet, when I look at the mainstream media and social media, all I'm seeing is a weird mix of copium, Sydney Morning Herald labelling Pauline Hanson Labor's friend, the ABC calling her a cannibal, the Adelaide Advertiser accusing her of dirty tricks. We'll get to that one specifically before the end of this video. And it's clear that the Liberal Party have learned absolutely nothing, because they plan to go even harder on the attack against One Nation, which of course is just going to help them even further. And I'm seeing lots of gloating disinformation, like this piece of tripe from the snarky gherkin, claiming that One Nation won nothing at all, and it was all just fake online bots. And I look at all of this and I find myself just shaking my head and wondering what's going on. Well, what's going on is that yet again, people who should know better are proving that they don't understand our electoral system or the Australian public. So in this video, I'm going to break down for you a bit of what's really going on in South Australia and the vote counting, so that you can cut through the crap that we're seeing online. The rise of a new political force, like what we're witnessing with One Nation right now, means that preference counting needs to be done differently to how it used to be done in past elections. Because with One Nation now being second in primary vote behind the Labor Party in all these seats shown in orange here, well, that means that a Liberal versus Labor two-party preferred vote would not be valid. That's then causing some delays in the counting, and it means that we won't know the final results in many seats until the end of this week. And that's not because of fraud or because the South Australian Electoral Commission aren't doing their jobs. It's actually the opposite. The delay is because they are doing their job. But the delay is also creating an opportunity for a huge amount of disinformation to flourish. And this matters because, as I said before the South Australian election, we are now in an information war, and controlling the narrative around the South Australian election, and again around the Farrer by-election, is crucial for the Uni Party and for the misinformation industrial complex, aka mainstream media. We'll dive into the details of what's really going on. That their website is not accurate. The Electoral Commission has to decide before the election which parties are most likely to be the final two for the purposes of a rapid two-party preferred vote count on election night. Now, I've gone into detail on this in past videos. They do this because they want to try and give a fast result on the night. Thing is, the Electoral Commission picks the likely top two, the two-party preferred parties for that count, based on past election results. They're not allowed to do it based on opinion polls, which is why they simply had to go with whatever happened at the last state election in South Australia. And that means that mostly they picked Liberal versus Labor to be the top two. But the primary vote results on the actual election night this year are clearly very different to what they were at the previous state election, with One Nation coming in second in a huge number of seats, and the Liberal Party often being fourth or worse in seats where they used to be first or second. So the South Australian Electoral Commission has had to toss out these rapid two-party preferred counts. They can't do them, and they have to hold off on announcing a winner until after a full preference count, which in South Australia will take place by this Saturday. So yeah, the Electoral Commission website isn't predicting any One Nation wins because the results this time are too far different from the results last time, so they can't declare them until they've done a full preference count, which is still days away. In the meantime, the website continues to display the outdated two-party preferred information, which makes the Liberals look like they're doing a lot better than what they actually are. But don't let the facts get in the way of a convenient narrative. The snarky gherkin was very happy to misinform his low IQ followers and deceive them for clicks. But here's the reality. The ABC have called the seat of Engadgeri for One Nation, thanks to the pre-poll votes coming out strongly in favour of One Nation, leapfrogging them over the top of the Liberal Party candidate, meaning that One Nation will win with the help of Liberal Party preferences. Now hold that thought, because that's going to be relevant in a few minutes. One Nation are ahead in 3 other seats as well. Firstly, in Hammond, where One Nation are hot favourites, and many pundits have already called this one as a win for One Nation. Then there's McKillop, where One Nation hold a narrow lead, but don't get too excited because we really have no idea what's likely to happen with the preferences from the outgoing independent MP, Nick McBride. So that one is definitely too close to call until the full preference count is done. And finally, there's this seat of Narungga. One Nation hold a very narrow lead there, and again, it's too close to call. Now, the Girk tried to claim that One Nation would get 0 lower house seats, and he showed information which was clearly not accurate to prove his point. And he said that the failure of One Nation was because, and I quote, "You can rack up votes across the state, but if they're thin, scattered, and don't get you over the line in actual seats, you get exactly what we saw last night, nothing." And the Ugly Gherkin provides us with this screenshot from the SAEC website that I showed you before. Well, we can file the Ugly Gherkin under spoke too soon, but also under you have no idea what you're talking about, you disingenuous idiot, because scattered votes across the state is exactly how you get elected in the upper house, the Legislative Council, where, just in case the green wartface missed it, One Nation have secured at least 2, probably 3 seats, meaning they've secured more seats in this election in the upper house than the Liberal Party. But actually, things may yet get even better for One Nation because they have one final ace up their sleeve. The Adelaide Advertiser calls it a dirty trick, but it's part of the South Australian electoral system and it's equally available to every political party. It's to do with the preservation of informal votes. These are votes where the intention of the voter is clear, but they didn't follow the letter of the law in how they voted. So, for example, if someone just puts a 1 on their ballot and doesn't number every single box in the lower house, well, such a vote used to be simply thrown in the bin as informal. But around Australia, various state and also the Federal Electoral Commission have introduced vote preservation rules, where they try to preserve all of these votes as much as they possibly can, so that the will of the people is done as best as possible. Now, each state does this differently. In South Australia, it requires the party to have submitted their own preference list. And if they do that, then anyone who simply voted 1 for One Nation, in this case, would have their preferences applied according to the order listed by One Nation, and their vote will still count. And here's the key. Right now, as the counting progresses, any informal votes, they're just set to one side. And going back through those informal votes later and saving the ones that can be saved, that is literally the last thing that gets done in the count. And this matters because One Nation voters are more likely than the other party's voters to have simply voted 1 for One Nation and left the rest blank. And that's because One Nation didn't publish full how to vote cards. They told their voters, vote 1 for One Nation and then fill out the rest of the card however you see fit. But humans being humans, this will have led to a handful of voters in probably every electorate simply putting a 1 next to One Nation and then not filling out the rest of the card.
United we shall stand, divided we will fall. Our country needs us to make the call.
This is a problem that the other parties won't have so much because the other parties published full how to vote cards with numbers in every box. Now, what all of this means is that the very last votes to be counted in every single seat will overwhelmingly be for One Nation. Now, how many of those votes will there be? Probably only a few dozen in any given seat, maybe at most a few hundred. And you'd think that that would be unlikely to flip a result. But there's no question it will help the One Nation candidates who are already ahead to hold on to their leads. And who knows, it might be enough to bring a One Nation candidate back into play versus a Liberal Party candidate. And of course, if they can get above a Liberal Party candidate on primary votes, then it's the Liberal Party candidate that gets eliminated, and the Liberal Party's preferences will then help the One Nation candidate to potentially get elected, in exactly the way that's happened with this seat of Engadgery. How much of an effect will this really have?
How our system works, stand in line to do the paperwork. Shit's not finished till the paperwork's done. Time to fire jerks, let's have some fun. Red, green, and blue failed me and you. All in all, there's not much else to do. Fuel prices are high and wages creep slow. corruption abounds, yeah, I know. Need someone new this time around. Watch and see who the people found. Red, green, and blue, finish with you. Need new leaders, someone true blue. See a party that puts the people first, not chasing power, driven by thirst. One who knows we need to make money. We'll create a land of milk and honey. Let's fix this mess and clean it up. Can't even afford to drive my truck. Wholesale change to the system now. In the next line I'll tell you how. United we shall stand, divided we will fall. The people who vote, they make the call. This is just how our system works. Stand in line to do the paperwork. Job's not finished till the paperwork's done. Time to fire jerks, let's have some fun. A worker will spend what they earn. When will the government ever learn? No income tax till the average wage. Business taxes boom, super adds a new page. We need small business to make a buck. Small business employment will run amok. Foundations are built from the ground up. Companies the same, not dumb luck. Immigration down, house prices decrease. Small business will thrive and increase. We failed with blue, red, and green. It's time to make changes and dream. Let's fix this mess and clean it up. Can't even afford to drive my truck. Wholesale change to the system now. In the next line I'll tell you how. United we shall stand,